Welcome to session 2 of our study on the Second Book of Esdras. If you remember, in the first session, we read Ezra's prophecy about the coming of a new people who would replace Israel as God's chosen people. This new people, although unnamed, appear to be the Christians, most likely the Gentile or non-Jewish Christians. In this session, we begin a series of prophecies and dialogues from Fourth Ezra. We will hear a discussion about the mystery of human destiny. These prophecies and dialogues sound very much like an apocalypse. We'll read chapters 3, 4, and 5 in this session. We will also take a quick look again at the Apocrypha. But before we get to all that, we'll begin with a prayer. Oh God, our Father, open our eyes and enlighten our minds as we study your word. So grant that our minds may know your truth and our hearts may feel your love, and then confirm and strengthen our wills that we may go out to live what we have learned. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. For a minute, we're going to talk about the types of literature found in the Apocrypha. Just like the Old Testament, there is a variety of literature found here. Judith, Tobit, Susanna, and Bel and the Dragon are short historical fictions written to convey a moral point, as well as to entertain. Except for Judith, which is set in Judah, the rest are sometimes referred to as diaspora novels, since they are all set in the Jewish diaspora of Mesopotamia. Bel and the Dragon is a court tale in which the hero's relationship with the king provides the conflict of the plot. Bel and the Dragon and Susanna are sometimes referred to as ancient detective stories. Tobit concerns the suffering of the righteous. Judith concerns a threat to the people from a foreign enemy. The expanded Greek version of Esther deals with the faithful Jews living among non-Jewish populations. Esther is also considered to be historical fiction. Third Maccabees has nothing to do with the Maccabean period, but deals with a period half a century earlier and concerns the suffering of the Jewish community in Egypt. It is a religious novel written in Greek by an Alexandrian Jew sometime after 30 BCE. The prayer Manasseh is a hymnic lament of great feeling and literary skill. The prayer of Azariah and the Song of the Three Jews are both modeled on psalms that are liturgical in form. Psalm 151 celebrates the prowess of young David slaying Goliath. The letter of Jeremiah may have provided later Christian writers an example of how the letter form could combine theological content with a direct personal approach. Second Esdras, the book we are reading in this study, purports to reveal the future and is considered to be primarily a Jewish apocalypse, similar to Revelation in the New Testament. There are 4 examples of wisdom or didactic literature in the Apocrypha: the wisdom of Solomon, the wisdom of Jesus, son of Suresh, sometimes called Suresh or Ecclesiasticus, 4 Maccabees, which is unrelated to the other 3 books with a similar name, and Baruch, which also has elements of historical and devotional writing as well. First and Second Maccabees are histories that give versions of the Maccabean revolt against the Seleucid king Antiochus IV in the 2nd century BCE. First Esdras also is considered a history. It tells the story of the exile, the return from exile, the rebuilding of the temple, and the leadership of Ezra. As we've said before, all books of the Apocrypha have not been accepted by all branches of Christianity. So which books are accepted as canonical or considered sacred scripture? 10 of these books are accepted as canonical in the Roman Catholic Church. Those same 10 books have been accepted as canonical in the Greek Orthodox and Slavonic or Russian Orthodox Church. However, the Greek and Russian Orthodox churches also accept First Esdras, the Prayer of Manasseh, Psalm 151, and Third Maccabees. The Russian Orthodox Church also accepts Second Esdras. None of the books of the Apocrypha are accepted as sacred scripture in most Protestant churches. That, of course, doesn't mean we can't find them anywhere. Several modern translations of the Bible print versions that include all of the books of the Apocrypha in a separate section. The New Revised Standard Version, Updated, the Common English Bible, and the New English Bible all have versions that include the Apocrypha. With that, we move on to the Second Book of Esdras. Chapters 3 through 14 are ostensibly set in Babylon in the 6th century BCE. Its starting point is the question of the fate of Israel, with Jerusalem destroyed and her inhabitants taken into captivity, and further, how this can be reconciled with the promises which God gave to her. Other than Ezra, the other major character of this section is the angel Uriel. So we begin with chapter 3, Ezra's prayer of complaint, the first 11 verses. In the 30th year after the destruction of the city, I was in Babylon. I, Salathiel, who am also called Ezra, I was troubled as I lay on my bed, and my thoughts welled up in my heart, because I saw the desolation of Zion and the wealth of those who lived in Babylon. My spirit was greatly agitated, and I began to speak anxiously to the Most High, and I said, O sovereign Lord, did you not speak at the beginning when you planted the earth, and that without help, and commanded the dust, and it gave you Adam, a lifeless body, yet he was the creation of your hands, and you breathed into him the breath of life, and he was made alive in your presence. And you led him into the garden that your right hand had planted before the earth appeared. And you laid upon him one commandment of yours, but he transgressed it. And immediately you appointed death for him and for his descendants. From him there sprang nations and tribes, peoples and clans without number. And every nation walked after its own will. They did ungodly things in your sight and rejected your commands, and you did not hinder them. But again in its time you brought the flood upon the inhabitants of the world and destroyed them. And the same fate fell upon all of them. Just as death came upon Adam, so the flood upon them. But you left one of them, Noah, with his household, and all the righteous who have descended from him. In the first verse, we are given the year as the 30th year after the destruction of the city, which would be 557 BCE. Historically, we know that Ezra belonged to the 5th century, or even possibly the early 4th. That is, he probably lived and was a priest and leader of Israel 100 or more years after the time we are given in this book. We need to keep in mind that the authors of 4th Ezra wanted to compare the period of exile and the fall of Jerusalem with the troubled events of the late 1st century CE. So we have to allow some latitude here. In the 1st century CE, the affairs in Palestine were controlled by the Romans. When we hear about the Babylonians here, they are often a stand-in name for the Romans. The recounting of the main events in the history of God's dealings with his people makes up a characteristic feature of the number of the Old Testament passages. And that is what we have here in Ezra's prayer. So let's go on with verse 12. When those who lived on earth began to multiply, they produced children and peoples and many nations, and again they began to be more ungodly than were their ancestors. And when they were committing inequity in your sight, you chose for yourself one of them, whose name was Abraham. You loved him, and to whom alone you revealed the end of the times secretly by night. You made an everlasting covenant with him and promised him that you would never forsake his descendants. And you gave him Isaac, and to Isaac you gave Jacob and Esau. You set apart Jacob for yourself, but Esau you rejected. And Jacob became a great multitude. And when you led his descendants out of Egypt, you brought them to Mount Sinai. You bent down the heavens and shook the earth and moved the world and caused the depths to tremble and troubled the times. Your glory passed through 4 gates of fire and earthquake and wind and ice, to give the law to the descendants of Jacob, your commandments to the posterity of Israel. In his prayer, Ezra acknowledges that God had on numerous occasions acted graciously on behalf of his people since the time of creation. He refers to the sparing of Noah and the choice of Abraham, the line of Jacob, and his deliverance from Egypt. But at the same time, Ezra realizes that at each stage the people had failed to respond and continued in a state of wickedness. Let's go on to verse 20. Yet you did not take away their evil heart from them, so that your law might produce fruit in them. For the first Adam, burdened with an evil heart, transgressed and was overcome, as were also all who were descended from him. Thus the disease became permanent. The law was in the hearts of the people, along with the evil root. But what was good departed, and the evil remained. So the time passed, and the years were completed, and you raised up for yourself a servant named David. You commanded him to build a city for your name, and there to offer your oblations from what is yours. This was done for many years, but the inhabitants of the city transgressed, in everything doing just as Adam and all his descendants had done, for they also had the evil heart. So you handed over your city to your enemies. In the end, God's people continually failed to respond, so God handed over the city, that is Jerusalem, to their enemies. We go on with verse 28 through the end of the chapter. Then I said in my heart, are the deeds of those who inhabit Babylon any better? Is that why it has gained dominion over Zion? For when I came here, I saw ungodly deeds without number, and my soul has seen many sinners during these 30 years. And my heart failed me, because I have seen how you endure those who sin, and have spared those who act wickedly, and have destroyed your people, and have protected your enemies, and have not shown to anyone how your way may be comprehended. Are the deeds of Babylon better than those of Zion? Or has another nation known you besides Israel? Or what tribes have so believed the covenants as these tribes of Jacob? Yet the reward has not appeared, and their labor has borne no fruit. For I have traveled widely among the nations, and have seen that they abound in wealth, though they are unmindful of your commandments. Now therefore weigh in a balance our iniquities and those of the inhabitants of the world, and it will be found which way the arrow of the scale tips. When have the inhabitants of the earth not sinned in your sight? Or what nation has kept your commandments so well? You may indeed find individuals who have kept your commandments, but nations you will not find. Ezra begins to blame this state of affairs on God. God had given the people of Israel the law, but had failed to take their wicked hearts away from them. The Israelites had continued their ways in sin, and as a consequence, been punished by the Babylonians. Ezra admitted this might be because the Babylonians lived better lives than the Israelites, but his experience in Babylon showed exactly the opposite was true. We move on to chapter 4 and the dialogues, and we hear about the limitations of the human mind. Let's go to chapter 4, verses 1 through 12. Then the angel that had been sent to me, whose name was Uriel, answered and said to me, your understanding has utterly failed regarding this world. And do you think you can comprehend the way of the Most High? Then I said, yes, my Lord. And he replied to me, I have been sent to show you 3 ways and to put before you 3 problems. If you can solve one of them for me, then I will show you the way you desire to see, and I will teach you why the heart is evil. I said, speak, my Lord. And he said to me, go weigh for me the weight of fire, or measure for me a blast of wind, or call back for me the day that is past. I answered and said, who of those that have been born can do that you should ask me about such things? And he said to me, if I had asked you how many dwellings there are in the heart of the sea, or how many streams there are in the source of the deep, or how many streams are above the firmament, or which of the exits of Hades, or which of the entrances of paradise, perhaps you would have said to me, I never went down to the deep, nor as yet into Hades, neither did I ever ascend into heaven. But now I have asked you only about fire and wind and the day, things that you have experienced and from which you cannot be separated, and you have given me no answer about them. He said to me, you cannot understand the things with which you have grown up. How then can your mind comprehend the way of the Most High? And how can one who is already worn out by corrupt world understand incorruption? When I heard this, I fell on my face and said to him, it would have been better for us not to be here than to come here and live in ungodliness and to suffer and not understand why. In this segment, the angel Uriel is introduced. Uriel challenges Ezra to do various things and answer various questions, which, although having to do only with this world, are clearly beyond man's capabilities. If Ezra can't understand even these essentially simple matters, how can he hope to comprehend the way of the Most High? The main thrust of Ezra's prayer in chapter 3 concerned Israel, God's chosen people, but he touched on why people sin. The angel interprets the prayer as being concerned primarily with this second point. Why is the heart wicked? So let's go on with verse 13. He answered me and said, I went into a forest of trees of the plain, and they made a plan and said, Come, let us go and make war against the sea, so that it may recede before us, and so that we may make for ourselves more forests. In like manner, the waves of the sea also made a plan and said, Come, let us go and subdue the forest of the plain, so that there also we may gain more territory for ourselves. But the plan of the forest was in vain, for the fire came and consumed it. Likewise also the plan of the waves of the sea was in vain, for the sand stood firm and blocked it. Now if you are a judge between them, which would you undertake to justify and which to condemn? I answered and said, Each made a foolish plan, for the land has been assigned to the forest, and the locale of the sea a place to carry its waves. He answered me and said, You have judged rightly, but why have you not judged so in your own case? For as the land has been assigned to the forest, and the sea to its waves, so also then those who inhabit the earth can understand only what is on the earth, and he who is above the heavens can understand what is above the height of the heavens. The moral of Uriel's parable seems to be that men on earth can understand earthly things and nothing else. The idea that the sea or the forest have been assigned a definite place is found several places in the Old Testament. And Uriel uses that idea in his parable. So let's go on with verse 22. Then I answered and said, I implore you, my Lord, why have I been endowed with the power of understanding? For I did not wish to inquire about the ways above, but about those things that we daily experience. Why Israel has been given over to the nation in disgrace. Why the people whom you loved has been given over to godless tribes, and the law of our ancestors has been brought to destruction, and the written covenants no longer exist. We pass from the world like locusts, and our life is like a mist, and we are not worthy to obtain mercy. But what will he do for his name that is invoked over us? It is about these things that I have asked. He answered me and said, If you are alive, you will see, and if you live long, you will often marvel, because the age is hurrying swiftly to its end. It will not be able to bring the things that have been promised to the righteous in their appointed times, because this age is full of sadness and infirmities. For the evil about which you ask me has been sown, but the harvest of it has not yet come. Therefore, that which has been sown is not reaped. And if the place where the evil has been sown does not pass away, the field where the good has been sown will not come. For a grain of evil seed was sown in Adam's heart from the beginning, and how much ungodliness it has produced until now, and will produce until the time of threshing comes. Consider now for yourself how much fruit of ungodliness a grain of evil seed has produced. When heads of grain without number are sown, how great a threshing floor they will fill. Ezra is not satisfied with the angel's answer, so he reformulates his question. He protests that his question is not about the distant heavens, but about things which happen every day before our eyes. Wasn't the law supposed to lead to salvation? Again, we find the double meaning in his complaint within the context of the story. Why did God give up Israel to the power of the seemingly unworthy Babylonians? But also we see the anguish of the situation in which the Jews found themselves after the war with the Romans in 66 to 73 CE, the temple destroyed and Jerusalem in ruins. In response, he is promised a new age. So we go on to verse 33. Then I answered and said, How long? When will these things be? Why are our years few and evil? He answered me and said, "Do not be in a greater hurry than the Most High. You indeed are in a hurry for yourself, but the Highest is in a hurry on behalf of many. Did not the souls of the righteous in their chambers ask about these matters, saying, 'How long are we to remain here? And when will the harvest of our reward come?' And the archangel Jeremiel answered and said, 'When the number of those like yourselves is completed, for he has weighed the age in the balance, and measured the times by measure, and numbered the times by number, and he will not move or arouse them until that measure is fulfilled.' Then I answered and said, 'But, O sovereign Lord of all of us, also are full of ungodliness. It is possible on account of us that the time of threshing is delayed for the righteous, on account of the sins of those who inhabit the earth.' He answered me and said, 'Go and ask a pregnant woman whether, when her 9 months have been completed, her womb can keep the fetus within her any longer.' And I said, 'No, Lord, it cannot.' He said to me, 'In Hades, the chambers of the souls are like the womb. For just as a woman who is in labor makes haste to escape the pangs of birth, so also do those places hasten to give back those things who were committed to them from the beginning. Then the things that you desire to see will be disclosed to you.'" So Ezra is not satisfied with the answers he's received, but he gives up his attack and asks questions simply to get information, specifically to find out when the old age will end and the new age will begin. You go on to verse 44 through the end of the chapter. I answered and said, "If I have found favor in your sight, and it is possible, and if I am worthy, show me this also, whether more time is to come than has passed, or whether for us the greater part has gone by. For I know what has gone by, but I do not know what is to come." And he said to me, "Stand at my right side, and I will show you the interpretation of a parable." So I stood and looked, and a flaming furnace passed by before me. And when the flame had gone by, I looked, and the smoke remained. And after this a cloud full of water passed before me, and poured down a heavy and violent rain. And when the violent rainstorm had passed, drops still remained in it. He said to me, "Consider it for yourself. For just as the rain is more than the drops, and the fire is greater than the smoke, so the quantity that is passed was far greater, but drops and smoke remained." Then I prayed and said, "Do you think that I shall live until those days? Or who will be alive in those days?" He answered me and said, "Concerning the signs about which you asked me, I can tell you in part. But I was not sent to tell you concerning your life, for I do not know." Will Ezra live to see the new age? The angel tells him that he can talk about the signs that precede the new age, but he doesn't know about Ezra's lifespan. We go to chapter 5, verses 1 through 5. "Now concerning the signs, behold, the days are coming when those who inhabit the earth shall be seized with great terror. The way of truth shall be hidden, and the land shall be barren of faith, and righteousness shall be increased beyond what you yourself see and beyond what you heard of formerly. And the land that you now see ruling shall be a trackless waste, and the people shall see it desolate. But if the Most High grants that you live, you shall see it thrown into confusion after the third period. And the sun shall suddenly begin to shine at night, and the moon during the day. Blood shall drip from wood, and the stone shall utter its voice. The peoples shall be troubled, and the skies shall be changed. And one shall reign whom those who inhabit the earth do not expect. And the birds shall fly away together, and the sea of Sodom shall cast up fish, and one whom the many do not know shall make his voice heard by night, and all shall hear his voice. There shall be chaos also in many places. Fire shall often break out, and the wild animals shall roam beyond their haunts. The minstrous women shall bring forth monsters. Salt water shall be found in the sweet, and all the friends shall conquer one another. And Then shall reason hide itself, and wisdom shall withdraw into its chamber, and it shall be sought by many, but shall not be found, and unrighteousness and unrestraint shall increase on earth. One country shall ask its neighbor, has righteousness or anyone who does right passed through you? And it will answer, no. And at that time people shall hope, but shall not obtain. They shall labor, but their ways shall not prosper. These are the signs that I am permitted to tell you. And if you pray again and weep as you do now, and fast for 7 days, you shall hear yet greater things than these. So we begin to hear the signs. There will be confusion and panic, loss of faith, and increase in wickedness, the reversal of the natural order of things. But here we come to the end of the first dialogue. Let's go on with verse 14. Then I woke up, and my body shuddered violently, and my soul was so troubled that it fainted. But the angel who had come and talked with me held me and strengthened me and set me on my feet. Now on the second night, Phaltiel, a chief of the people, came to me and said, "Where have you been? And why is your face sad? Or do you not know that Israel has been entrusted to you in the land of their exile? Rise, therefore, and eat some bread. Do not forsake us like a shepherd who leaves the flock in the power of savage wolves." Then I said to him, "Go away from me and do not come near me for 7 days. Then you may come to me." He heard what I said and left me. So I fasted 7 days, mourning and weeping, as the angel Uriel had commanded me. Ezra's reaction to the first dialogue was one of terror and consternation. The new dialogue with Phaltiel gives him a respite and a chance to relax a bit. We go on now to verse 21 in Ezra's second prayer of complaint. After 7 days, the thoughts of my heart were very grievous to me again. Then my soul recovered the spirit of understanding, and I began once more to speak words in the presence of the Most High. I said, "O sovereign Lord, from every forest of the earth and from all its trees, you have chosen one vine, and from all the lands of the world you have chosen for yourself one region. And from all the flowers of the world you have chosen for yourself one lily. And from all the depths of the sea you have filled yourself one river. And from all the cities that have been built you have consecrated Zion for yourself. And from all the birds that have been created you have named for yourself one dove. And from all the flocks that have been made you have provided for yourself one sheep. And from all the multitude of peoples you have gotten for yourself one people. And to this people, whom you have loved, you have given the law that is approved by all. And now, O Lord, why have you handed the one over to the many and dishonored the one root beyond the others and scattered your only one among the many? And those who oppose your promises have trampled on those who believe your covenants. If you really hate your people, they should be punished at your own hands." So this prayer is different in character from the first prayer in chapter 3, but it has a similar function. The big question, if God had really chosen Israel, why had he put her at the mercy of the nations? In verse 31, the angel comes back to try to straighten him out. So let's read that. When I had spoken these words, the angel who had come to me on a previous night was sent to me. He said to me, "Listen to me, and I will instruct you. Pay attention to me, and I will tell you more." Then I said, "Speak, my Lord." And he said to me, "Are you greatly disturbed in mind over Israel? Or do you love him more than his maker does?" I said, "No, my Lord, but because my grief I have spoken, for every hour I suffer agonies of heart while I strive to understand the way of the Most High and to search out some part of his judgment." He said to me, "You cannot." And I said, "Why not, my Lord? Why then was I born? Or why did not my mother's womb become my grave, so that I would not see the travail of Jacob and the exhaustion of the people of Israel?" He said to me, "Count up for me those who have not yet come, and gather for me the scattered raindrops, and make the withered flowers bloom again for me. Open for me the closed chambers, and bring out for me the winds shut up in them. Or show me the picture of a voice, and then I will explain to you the travail you ask to see. I said, O sovereign Lord, who is able to know these things except him whose dwelling is not with mortals? As for me, I am without wisdom, and how can I speak concerning the things that you have asked me? He said to me, just as you cannot do one of the things that were mentioned, so you cannot discover my judgment or the goal of the love that I have promised to my people. The angel leads Ezra to finally accept 2 points. One, Ezra does not love Israel more than God. And two, God's judgment and God's love for Israel are beyond human understanding. We read on to in verse 41. I said, yet, O Lord, you have charge of those who are alive at the end. But what will those do who have lived before me, or we ourselves, or those who come after us? He said to me, I shall liken my judgments to a circle, just as for those who are last there is no slowness, so for those who are first there is no haste. Then I answered and said, could you not have created at one time those who have been, and those who are, and those who will be, so that you might show your judgment the sooner? He replied to me and said, the creation cannot move faster than the Creator, nor can the world hold at one time those who have been created in it. I said, how have you said to your servants that you will certainly give life at one time to your creation? If therefore all creatures will live at one time and the creation will sustain them, it might even now be able to support all of them present at one time. He said to me, ask a woman's womb and say to it, if you bear 10 children, why one after another? Request it therefore to produce 10 at one time. I said, of course it cannot, but only each in its own time. He said to me, even so I have given the womb of the earth to those who from time to time are sown in it. For as an infant does not bring forth, and a woman who has become old does not bring forth any longer, so I have made the same rule for the world that I created. Then I inquired and said, since you have now given me the opportunity, let me speak before you. Is our mother, of whom you have told me, still young, or is she now approaching old age? He replied to me, ask a woman who bears children, and she will tell you. Say to her, why are those whom you have borne recently not like those who you bore before, but smaller in stature? And she herself will answer you, those born in the strength of youth are different from those born during the time of old age, when the womb is failing. Therefore you also should consider that you and your contemporaries are smaller in stature than those who were before you, and those who come after you will be smaller than you, as born of a creation that already is aging and passing the strength of youth. I said, I implore you, O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, show your servant through whom you will visit your creation. Again, Ezra has a series of questions. Why couldn't all men have been created at the same time and therefore not have to wait so long for God's judgment? And again, he is given more parables. We'll talk about some of Ezra's questions in our Zoom discussion session. What questions would you ask of the angel? If you were the angel in this story, what answers or explanations would you be giving? Early in chapter 3, we heard the angel speak words reminiscent of God speaking to Job. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me, if you have understanding. Who determined its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together and all the heavenly beings shouted for joy. Do we hear some of that same message here in Second Esdras? In our next session, we'll read and discuss chapters 6 and 7, but we probably won't read every word of chapter 7 because it's a very long chapter. We will probably do some summarizing with that one. There will be more dialogue between Ezra and the angel, and there will be more of the apocalypse and the signs. If you're not yet signed up for the Zoom discussion session, you can send an email to online.classes@northgateumc.org to sign up. In the meantime, have a good week.